Prosecutors say Officer Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, including 2 minutes and 53 seconds after Floyd had become unresponsive.
We are struggling to breathe. I feel like the black community in America is literally like this. We're being choked to death. It was the words of Eric Garner and the last words as well of George Floyd. I can't breathe. Can we live? Can we live? The land in America, the land of the brave, the home of the free? My ass. Only if you're white. It's the land of a don't you dare be black, when you might be gunned down by a cop just for being black. Looking up the skyline, let the sunshine, raindrops go away, away, away. Looking up the skyline. My name's Jay Moni, and this is Jay's World. So of course, you're welcome to my world. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Ahmaud Aubrey, Breonna Taylor, Jamar Clark, Sandra Bland, Philandro Castile, Trayvon Martin, John Crawford. I am so tired. I am so tired. When will it end? Because quite frankly, I am tired of picking up the newspaper or going online to see what's going on in the world and reading that another black brother has lost his life due to police brutality, usually white cops. I mean, this issue is bigger than racism, you know. It's bigger than, this is what I realize. And I think like the worst thing that could come out of this situation is that it's like, oh, I can't breathe goes trending, it goes viral on social media, and we have a conversation about it for the period of maybe about a week, and then conversation goes back to the next current event, and we forget about this, like, and you know, no effective change comes out of it. I feel like that would be one of the worst things that will happen. I feel like we need to talk about it. There is a virus, there is a cancer within our system, and it's a bias, it's a prejudice, it's a virus, and it's killing and devastating the black communities. Imagine this. I'm just wondering what kind of conversations parents are to have with their kids these days. If you're a parent and you have a black son, a black daughter, firstly, especially if you're growing up in the United States, but these issues, I think, affect communities all around the world. I've spoken to people who are going through the same thing in Australia, the same thing, I believe, here in the UK. And I'm just wondering what conversations, but obviously this is more prevalent in the United States. And I'm wondering what black parents are telling their kids. You know, are they having the talk? What do you do when you get stopped by the police? How do you conduct yourself? How do you behave? Well, they say, okay, actually, maybe the best thing is not to get stopped by the police. Maybe the best thing is to study, get good grades, get a good job, and you work your job. You know, you go to work, you come home, stay off the streets. But then again, you might end up like a Breonna Thomas, who was shot dead 8 times in her bed by white police officers who would come to her apartment to execute a search warrant on her boyfriend. She died, but there were no drugs found in that premises. And a young lady, she was an emergency technician, so she was a sort of nurse. A young lady with promise lost her life due to police brutality. So you say, okay, if you do get stopped by the cops, perhaps you're a parent and you tell your kids, if you do get stopped by the cops, listen to what they tell you, comply, don't be bullish, don't be mouthy. If they tell you get on the ground, get on the ground. If they say put your hands where my eyes can see, you do it. And let's say it happens to a black brother and you get stopped by the cops like a George Floyd, and you do everything that they tell you to do, but what you get in return is a knee in your neck that chokes the life out of you. I feel like black lives are liable to be lost at the hands of a police officer these days for no reason other than the fact that you are black. And that is disgraceful. What is the highest sign of a community letting someone know that you are not wanted in that society? How much more clearer can you get that message across by when the police are the ones killing you? Those that we trust to uphold law and order are the ones murdering us. And what more do we say, right? What more do we do? It's like the way, I don't know if y'all saw the video, the way that police officer, Derek Chauvin, kept his knee in George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, right? Even though he knew he was being recorded, even though he knew that it was being put on, someone had a video evidence, that just says that there is a belief as a white person that you have a right to take a black man's life as a police officer without the fear of impunity. And that's right, because out of about 200 cases of ethnic minorities and blacks being killed by police, most of these things never make it. No, most of these cops never get persecuted. They mostly get away with it. And I really believe that would have played a big factor in the fact that Derek Chauvin kept his knee in George Floyd's neck, despite knowing that bystanders were recording it. Now, this is a man who was stopped for suspected forgery of a $20 bill. I'll say that again. Yeah, he was stopped because he was suspected of using a forged $20 bill. Now, tell me, how is someone supposed to lose their life over something like that? How does a police attending such a scenario end up with someone dying? Does that even make, like, I can't, what? What about Sandra Bland? A routine, we have not forgotten about Sandra Bland, a routine traffic stop ends up with this woman dead whilst in police custody. And I just think it's enough. It's enough. A black person is 3 times more likely than a white person to get killed in America by a police. And that is so sad. That is so sad. Like, I saw the meme on social media the other day where someone asked this young black kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And his response was, alive. Or tell me what conversation a black parent is having to their kid. Imagine your kid grows up and he does well, wakes up one day in his nice neighborhood and decides to go for a little jog around and ends up being gunned down, murdered in broad daylight by 2 white supremacists. And why? I feel like, and when this happens, the black community, we all go up in arms and everybody posts things on their social media and we all say, oh, this is wrong. But I feel like the people that should be speaking, the ones with the real voices to effect, will change. And unfortunately, these continue to be the white people, and a majority of them stay silent. And I know there's a lot of good people out there, white and otherwise, who do not agree with any form of racism. And I really commend these people, but I feel like we need more white people fighting our corner now. Obviously, I'm not saying it anymore. Like, it's not enough to just not be racist. Oh, you know, my sister's got a black boyfriend, so I can't be racist. You know, I'm cool with that. My sister's boyfriend's black, so I'm not racist. Like, what does that even mean? Seriously, what does that mean? I feel like it is not enough to just raise your kids to treat black people well now. I feel like you actively have to raise your kids to be anti-racist so that they do not end up killing one of my brothers and sisters. Okay, when I saw what happened to George Floyd, it broke my heart for real, because I have 2 brothers. You know, I would hate to hear that one of my brothers got killed by a cop over nothing, because that's exactly what it was, over nothing. And this happens all the time in America. This happens all the time. Do you know the only reason that we are here talking about it and being so hot and being so bothered about it now is because of the video footage? What if there was no video footage? The narrative would be, oh, a black man died whilst resisting arrest from police officer. Thank God for the video footage to show that actually he was murdered. But this is just one of many that happens all the time that we hear about. This goes on. This has been going on for many decades in the US. It's nothing new. In the UK too. Bias and discrimination from the police towards black people. I think it's so, nothing epitomizes a broken society more than when one section of that society feels like they need to make hashtags, placards, they need to go out and protest and to tell you that their lives matter too, the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that's the highest epitomization of a broken society, where you fail to recognize that the lives of one part of the society is equally as important as the other parts of the society. And Black Lives Matter movement does not mean that other lives don't matter. It doesn't mean that Asian lives don't matter. It doesn't mean that Latino lives don't matter. It doesn't mean that white lives don't matter. We all matter. But unfortunately, what I think is going on here is that when you look, when a lot of people look at a black man, a black woman, there is so many racial prejudices that come into play. And you judge them, and this impartial bias and this understated judgment leads to prejudices in the way that you behave towards these people. And I feel like a lot of this comes from people fearing what they don't understand. We all saw the video of the black man who was the bird watcher, Mr. Cooper, I believe, and this lady, Karen, let's call her Karen. I don't know what her name is, but let's call her Karen. And she threatened to call the police on this black man just because he asked her to put her dog on the leash, which is a requirement for walking in that part of the park anyway. So she should have been doing that already. So he asked her to put her dog on the leash. And what we saw in the video was her saying, I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African-American man is threatening me. It's just threatening me. That's what this woman said. At the same time, she's choking this dog. Like, this dog, to me, looked terrified. This dog was struggling to breathe. I heard the RSPCA actually have taken that dog off her. She got in a fit of a rage because of a black man asked her to put her dog on a leash. And probably on a normal day, this woman works with black people. She would tell you, no, I'm not racist, da-da-da-da. But, and, you know, I feel like, by the way, I must say this, I feel like a lot of people have these prejudices that could come out, expressed as racism internally, but you might not realize. So that woman, she probably works with quite a few black people, and she'll probably tell you, oh, I've slept with a black man like 5 years ago, I'm not racist, it was good, blah, 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 da-da-da-da. But when a black man in the park calmly, because we've all seen the video evidence, asked her to put her dog on a leash, the first thing that the most hurtful thing that she can do to that black man is tell him that she's going to call the police on him and tell the police that he's threatening her. That was on Monday, by the way. That was the same day that was in New York. But on that same day in Minnesota, a white policeman killed a black man. I see what that woman did is an example of white privilege, whether you want to admit it or not. Because why, when she threatened to call the police, why, number one, does she feel like she can call the police on a black man using his phone in a public space? When she told him that she was threateningly, in my opinion, that she was going to call the police on him, she was very clear about the fact that it was about his race, because she said, I am going to tell them that an African-American man is threatening me. Okay? And you have to, how many black people am I going to say, I'm going to call the police and tell them that a white person is scaring me, is threatening me? Black people don't have that kind of privilege. So I feel like this unease in society is a white privilege, because why does you calling the cops on somebody when you're the one breaking the rule? What kind of entitlement is that? And then that brother was so cut, man. I'm glad she ran into that brother and she didn't run into me, you know. Boy, you know, you get, what are you doing? Like, some of us need to check ourselves. And this is the problem, because I know many people like this type of ladies, and I believe on a normal day, this would be the kind of person that would tell you that they're not racist. And maybe they don't go around calling black people niggers. Maybe they don't support cops killing black people. But look at your behavior. You want to call the police on an innocent African-American man and make up shit. And why does his race come into play with that? Because you understand the way that police treat an African-American man in comparison to a white man. So someone like this might tell me they're not racist, but your behavior is clearly racist to me. So this is the point I'm trying to make. For us to make real effective change, we all really need to start checking ourselves. It's not just like, oh, I'm not hurting any black person today. I'm not hurting any Asian person, so I'm not a bad person. I'm not a racist. It's like, no, it's like, are you actively anti-racist? Do you actively look within yourself to make sure that these prejudices do not lie inside you? Because sometimes it just takes a trigger, like our little Karen over there, you know, it just takes a trigger and you express yourself and everyone's like, oh, we never knew you felt that way. I'm sure since that video went viral, there's so many people in her lives who are beyond shocked, who, if you ask them, they'll probably tell you, nah, man, I would have never believed she would do a thing like this. And there's so many people who also do not believe that they would treat someone from a different race like that, but they would if put in that situation. So we need to check ourselves. It's not enough to just say, oh, I'm not racist. It's like, well, what views do you internalize? Do you believe that the color of someone's skin makes them better than someone else? Those names I read out at the beginning, names like Philandro Castile, like George Floyd, like Ahmaud Aubrey, like Sandra Bland, John Crawford, do these names not mean anything to you? If you're someone that does not even recognize these names, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm just going to leave that. But this is, it's a big issue, guys, like, for real. For real. Unharmed black men are killed at a rate triple that of their white counterparts. Unarmed black men. On top of that, right, on top of the fact that black people are, I mean, this issue is much bigger than just, oh, cops are killing black person. It has a lot to do with social inequality. It has a lot to do with a lack of infrastructure, a lack of investments in black communities. It has a lot to do with a lack of opportunities for black kids and black youths. It's like an intrinsic failure of the system to give black kids the same opportunities as their white counterparts. And then to top it off, you have the law and enforcement branch of the legislative governance that actually get away with killing black people illegally, murdering black people and getting away with it. I thank God so much for social media. I mean, despite everything, the only reason that these last few names we've heard about, Ahmaud Aubrey, George Floyd, the only reason we hear about even like the list of these cases is because of the social media and the way that the world is now. But there are so many others that go unchecked. There's so many, this happens so many more times than you can even believe, and not just there, not just in America. Okay, and then at a time where we know that economic disparity is working against the black communities, and you can see that with a disease like COVID-19, which is disparaging our communities. It's killing off ethnic minorities, especially the blacks, at a more prevalent rate in the United States and across the world, certainly, but at a more prevalent rate than white people. And then you have things like police officers murdering people, black people again. And when is it enough? You know, are you surprised that the people are angry? Are you surprised that people are mad? Are you surprised that there's riots on the streets of Minnesota? I feel like if the tables were turned around, you would see the exact same thing, whether it's whites, it's blacks. And I feel like it's time for change. It was like the Floyd story is causing a national outcry due to video footage. But what if there was no video footage? Then the narrative of this story would be that the police officer killed Floyd because Floyd was resisting arrest. And we've heard this many, many times before. And yet, despite all these murders, the police officers continue to remain beyond the reach of the law. The economic disparity, actually now, I feel like now for us to genuinely make progress, we have to be raising kids that are actively anti-racist towards all races, whether you're raising black kids, you're raising white kids, and we have to practice that. Because the black community, we've been going through this for a long time and we've been asking for help. And I feel like we need the voices of everyone coming together now to say, this is not okay. This is not okay in America. This is not okay in the UK. It's just a hard thing to discuss, and I really would like to send my condolences and my prayers out to the families of Ahmaud Aubrey, the families of George Floyd and friends, and everyone else who has lost their lives unnecessarily due to this murderous cops. It is my wish that this cop receives the full arm of the law and he's not allowed to get away with this cold murder in broad daylight. We are struggling to breathe. I feel like the black community in America is literally like this. We're being choked to death. It was the words of Eric Garner and the last words as well of George Floyd. I can't breathe. Can we live? Can we live? It's your girl Jay Moni, and this is Jay's World. I have been rambling and giving my thoughts on the recent wave of black casualties at the hands of police, and I do believe that we live in a racist world, which is the question I posed at the start of this video, and I feel like we all have a responsibility to check ourselves, to make sure that those around us are not harboring prejudices and biases that could one day result in things like what we've just seen happen recently at Central Park with George Floyd. Real change needs to come. It needs to come from discussion, it needs to come from conversation, and it needs to come from a place of love. It's your girl Jay Mooney, and this is Jay's World. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you give it a like. I'll be back soon. I'm going to see you guys soon. Real soon. Love.